Yesterday and today, the headlines have been dominated by some news that Congress and the Senate have now passed new privacy laws that basically open up the door to ISPs to share all of our browsing data with the highest bidder. And across the interwebs, you see people are outraged. They are really, really unhappy about this new law. And I want to take a minute to point out a couple of things. First of all, I want to make a suggestion to everybody who publishes or posts something on the web about their disdain towards this law. Read. I know this is kind of a new thing in the world that we live in, but there are too many people right now that are sharing the headlines that haven't actually read about this law and what it means. The second thing is I want to let everyone know a little bit about what it means. So if you want the cliff notes, here they are. First of all, this law, while it does give new powers to internet service providers to track our data, realistically, it actually is shifting to the ISP that they've already had. The laws were going to limit their ability to see this data, but they've always had this data and they've always been able to share it because as part of our terms of services, we've always signed away the right to stop that. The second thing that's really important to understand is when we download apps and browse the internet, we are almost always giving our data away anyhow. Whether that's Google, whether that's Facebook, whether that's where we search on Amazon, we are constantly giving our data away. And oftentimes, once we download that app, whether it's a social app, a digital app, even those funny little apps where they say we'll create a cartoon image of you, we are signing away our rights, we are giving away data, and that data is often being sold. So when we complain about what access certain entities, whether it's our ISPs, our search engine providers, our social media sites have towards our data, I think it's interesting that we're getting fussy about this particular case because by and large, the ISPs have always been able to do this. They've always had this data and the protections have always been somewhat limited. Another thing that's really important to point out too about this new law is that this new law protects certain types of data still. And that includes data about our children, it includes data about our banking and finances, and it also includes health data. So while, yes, they may have a slight additional amount of access to data and the ability to sell the data, it actually still does limit certain sets of data that's highly sensitive. So the law doesn't completely open up the ISPs to sell that data off to the highest bidder. They're still being limited in sensitive data areas. Now, my third point, and I think this might be the most important point, I made this earlier, but I want to reiterate this again. We cannot be selective about our privacy when we want to complain. And this is probably the number one reason a law like this passes and will be a subject of conversation for a few weeks, months, and then it will suddenly go away. From the time we started signing up for apps and did not read the terms of services that went along with those apps was the day that we basically opened up Pandora's box in terms of this type of legislation. As long as we've been using Facebook, Google, Twitter, Instagram, we've been both publicly creating data that we are allowing people to use for their benefit, and we've also been privately searching, letting cookies onto different sites that we use, and been tracked, and then that information is being sold, often for marketing value, to a bidder that can provide the best price. And we've been okay with that. And it's always been an exchange of privacy for value. So long as we felt we got enough value out of the app, we didn't complain about it. So now we're sort of turning this into a partisan thing. And again, I don't really hang on either side here. This isn't a partisan issue for me. This is more of a don't complain about something that A, you haven't read, and that B, you've been basically helping along so long as you haven't truly taken the time to understand your data rights and privacy rights, and so long as you've been signing away your privacy rights with each new app that you download, that you don't read the terms of services. So yes, there's new legislation. Yes, it potentially gives the ISPs some additional access to your data, but realistically, if you are reading this and sharing it and not actually reading about the legislation, what it means, and how it's truly different, then you may in fact be more part of the problem than part of the solution. And if you're serious about your privacy, then start reading those terms, start reading what this legislation means, and start paying attention to your network, to your security, to your passwords, to all the things that truly create privacy on the internet. And if you're truly looking to not have your data get out there, then I have a very simple suggestion for you. Erase all your accounts, get off the internet for good, because that's probably the best chance you truly have of keeping all of your data private.